Is manifesting from need easier than from desire? That's exactly what we're talking about on the Manifesting Guide podcast. But before we do that, it's nearly here. I want you to be part of the celebration. After 5 years in the making and refinement and expansion of the Manifesting Guide book, it's about to be published. Oh, it's amazing. So what you'll get in the book is you'll learn how to get your unconscious to manifest for you, remove hidden negativity that sabotages, establish a relationship with true self, re-engage your childlike, hopeful mind to dream again, and truly discover what's right for you. Go to themanifestingguide.com/waitlist, and there are special bonuses for you. There's going to be unpublished content that you will get, and a masterclass, Making Manifesting Real. Don't delay. Go there now. manifestingguide.com/waitlist. Now, on to the episode 57. Manifesting from need versus desire. So which one would you guess is more powerful, effective, successful? If we need something, it's important, right? If you need a new relationship, you need a new car, you need money, you need better health, you need a quieter house to live in. Need. We've all heard of Maslow's hierarchy of need. There's a clue in that. So if you notice, as you go up his hierarchy of needs, that you're getting more into the ethereal, the spiritual, love, connection, community. But down at the base is physical survival. You're starting to figure where this might be going. So if you think of desire, it's an extra. It's not a necessity. It comes from a state of mind of, I have all I need. And this would just be extra. It's bonus. Versus need, which comes from a place of requirement. If you think about it, it's almost the opposite of desire. So when we try to manifest from a need, it's coming from fight or flight response. It's survival based. And from that place, let me ask you, do you think manifesting your intention, your need, will be successful when it comes from that place of I have to have it? I'll tell you a story first. I grew up in Southern California. I went to high school in Long Beach, California. And there was an expression, as a young woman, people would say, adults would say, watch out for the jarheads. And I'm like, what are jarheads? I don't know if you know this expression. I do not mean to be derogatory at all, because I admire these young men. So jarheads were the Marines that were newly enlisted, and you can imagine, boot camp, and then they may be sent off for deployment, and when they come back, they've been around, for the most part, a lot of men, for a long time. You know what's coming next, right? So adults would warn us, if you're going out to a nightclub, watch out for the jarheads. So they described it. Jarhead came from the type of haircut they would get, which they didn't literally put a jar on top of their head, but you get an idea. It's like very, very short in the back. So how does this relate to manifesting? Well, it's interesting because I didn't recognize these people by their haircut, these men. I recognized it by, ready for it, their need. They were hungry. They were, basically, they wanted female companionship in a very big way. So let me ask you, is that attractive? If a man is coming from that place of, I have to have it, versus, oh, you're attractive. Oh, let me learn about you. What's your name? What are your interests? Versus, you get the idea, right? So these jarheads were something to be avoided because they had a strong need. Well, we could say desire too, right? And that it wasn't coming from a place of, I want to get to know you, let's date, and a relationship. Because their life wasn't certain. They were going to possibly be deployed somewhere else. So if we have a strong need, it can be felt. Now you'd think, well, with manifesting, isn't the universe responding to our need? That emotion, that powerful driving force, how much we want something? Well, yes or no. I remember way back when I first started teaching this material, back in 2005, there were the book that started this all, and you may have heard me mention it in another podcast, How to Get Lots of Money for Anything Fast. Now, the book had a catchy title, and back then, it was a lot more attractive than it is now with its, title and book cover. People are a little bit more hesitant to go after something with such a catchy title, which is really a sad shame because there's powerful content in this book, but that's another conversation. So what I noticed is that the people who had found this book, this ebook, and were reading it and trying to do the exercises, they would come to me for help because I was licensed and certified to teach this. And it's a rigorous scientific method of manifesting. So I would be excited to share this content with people and be able to answer their questions and guide them to their desire, their wish, and help them analyze where they were tripping themselves up. Almost like I would go through a manifesting checklist. And inevitably, and this was what was so shocking, and I could tell you it was heartbreaking. As a mentor, it was heartbreaking. The people with the greatest need, like I've got to make my rent money, what do you think happened for them? They're manifesting. Do you think it was something that was easy to accomplish because of that driving need? No. Because they did not have the basics met. They couldn't pay for rent. They didn't have the money for their housing. The money was essential. It was life or death survival. Maybe not that big, but you get the idea. Who would want to miss a rent payment and the potential of being kicked out on the street, evicted? I mean, that's pretty serious. And then the people would come to me and say, I want to get another client or two. My business is already doing really well, but there are certain clients I love working with, and I just want to up-level my attraction of the type of client that I love to work with. What do you think happened with them? Well, easy peasy. I remember one client, she got one of my home study courses, and she started working with me privately. It was actually the very next day, there was a client that she was wooing. She was a Hollywood publicist, and this client would kind of come around, say, I'd like to work with you. But it'd been months and months, and she never signed a contract, never took action. Well, within a day of working with me, the woman signed the contract and brought in, I think it was over $20,000. Do you see the difference? One person needs it to pay their rent or their mortgage. Another person they don't need the money. Their basics are met. So manifesting from need versus desire. So a lot of people come to this work with a laundry list of what they want. And what I usually do is I recommend pick something where the difficulty is not so high. In the Manifesting Guide, the book coming out, we talk about something 4 or less in difficulty. Now, a 10 would be nearly impossible. You've never experienced it. It's really hard to even imagine it and hold it in your mind. 1 would be easy peasy. I'll give you an example. So imagine if I said, rate the difficulty of walking over to your front door, opening the door, walking outside, and closing the door. What would the difficulty be? I mean, if we had a 0, it'd be a 0. You've done it hundreds, thousands of times. And then I'll say, okay, rate the difficulty of going to a car dealership and buying the top of the line, whatever your car is, today. Now your mind would be racing. Okay, well, I don't have that in savings and I don't really want to go into debt, and my car's okay, but boy, I would like a brand new car. Oh, that'd be great. So you see, you've activated all of this, your analytical mind, your rational mind. And what can start to happen is the difficulty of all those things you'd have to sort out. Oh, I don't have the savings, so I got to get it approved. And what's that going to do to my credit rating? And I don't have the extra money of $500 a month to easily pay for that. So your analytical, rational mind's got activated, and it's trying to figure out the how. How is it going to happen? Versus, you know how it's going to happen if you walk to the front door and open it up and go outside. You know how. You've done it. There is magic quotes around it, in being able to do something, repeat a success, which is why in my line of work, we launch off a prior memory. We call it our starter memory. We launch off. All this is described in the Manifesting Guide in detail in the book. So let's go back to the clients who would come to me who needed money desperately. It just broke my heart because their stress response was so high. I didn't know that. I just knew that whatever it took for them to move from, oh my gosh, it's near impossible, but I have to have it, to lightly holding it, turning it into a desire and not a driving, screaming need. There were blockers, my friend, in between those two states of mind. What do I mean by blockers? Well, blockers come from certain experiences in our life, certain thinking, certain behaviors that have become programmed in our unconscious mind. It becomes a pattern, a way of dealing with stress, a way of coping with the unknown. And a lot of times it yanks us right back into the known and familiar, even if it's not comfortable. So if someone has been trying to make money over time, obviously if they don't have money to pay their rent, that's been a challenge. That's been a pain point for them. So they've had a lot of false starts, false attempts, lack of success. The more you've tried to accomplish something and the more you have quote unquote failed at it, that increases the gap from where you are now to where you want to go. Not a problem. You can clear those blocks, but most people don't have the patience, nor are they able to get peaceful enough in their body to do the exercises. So that fight or flight, that stress response is turned up to a screech like that. You can't hear the subtle intuitive guidance to accomplish your objective. You're on high alert. It's like the car engine going into the red zone. All you can hear the screeching. So with manifesting, it's subtle work, and it takes being a little calmer, a little slower, to be able to get the intuitive message of what's the next step, or to identify if a pattern has been triggered and you're now in self-defeating mode. That takes a little sensitivity and a little quiet to be able to hear that. I came upon this quote I'd like to share with you from Dr. Joe Dispenza. For anyone who's been listening to the podcast or knows me, I like his manner of teaching meditation. It's very aligned with what we do in our programs, the Highest Potential program, because it's manifesting from thought and actually energizing it with emotions. Okay, so here's a quote. Your environment is an extension of your mind. If you truly change your mind, your life changes. Let's go back to the example. Manifesting from need versus desire. So do you think the person's environment is positive, abundant, progressive, energizing if someone can't pay their rent? Do you think their environment might be a little filled with worry, fear? versus someone's environment whose basic needs are met. I mean, that's a simple example. But our environment absorbs our thinking, absorbs our feelings. If you've ever had this experience of going into, I don't know, a hotel room or even in your own home, and you walk into a room and you feel this energy, it feels a little racy or a little, you have this kind of drop in your stomach, you feel a little bit fearful. That energy could have come from someone watching a movie. It used to happen to me when I lived with my ex-partner. He would like very intense, what he called bad guy movies because of the justice in there. His sensitivity could handle that. I could not. I would wake up, if I went to sleep early, wake up in a bolt of fear. And I'd walk out, I said, "What are you watching?" So it started to be a joke that I would hear this. So those movies had an energy about them, especially the emotion it would trigger in him. And it would fill the home. Seriously would. And then you could start to imagine what could happen if someone had that anxious mindset. On top of that, it starts to, this energy gets into the walls, into the furniture. So I'm going to read this quote again. Your environment is an extension of your mind. If you truly change your mind, your life changes. So let's go back to manifesting. If you want to manifest money, there's also an expression from way back when that I learned, to get gold, you have to have some gold. So if you want to manifest money, how can we turn that around to where it's no longer survival? It's extra, it's a desire, it's a bonus. It's like the cherry on top of the ice cream sundae. I'm going to give you a tip that I found to be effective. So if you do need to manage money, first thing to do is to get on top of it way before it's critical. That's obvious, right? To have a sense of where your needs are right now and be proactive. Manifesting is way more successful when we're proactive versus dire critical state. Yes, of course, the mother can pick up, a 3,000-pound car off her child. I actually researched that. It's actually true. Not the mother, but there was a neighbor who did it. Because we're in that intense activation of, we could say, cortisol, which amplifies the strength in our muscles. We have more blood pumping to our heart. There's physiological reasons to be able to do that. But we need to be on top of it, so we have to be proactive. So what I suggest, once you've done that, is to create a basic wish list. And you can get yours in the manifesting kit, and I'll leave in the show notes how to grab that for free. So instead of money, because money, you've been working on it for a while, is you write down what you'll do with the money. Obviously, paying rent, that's going to have some energy around it, right? Some fear and scarcity. So you could make it playful. You could make it over the top, abundant. I'll pay my rent in advance, at least 2 months. Does you feel a difference in that? Like, I'll finally be able to pay my rent versus I'm going to pay my rent in advance. That way I can take an extended summer holiday and have my rent completely covered. I can feel it in my body, the relaxation. Okay. What about some other things that you might use that money for? There's an expression from one of the coaches I worked with. She called it having a purpose for your money, money purpose. So when you're setting a goal, an objective around money, where's that money going to go? Be very clear and really be in integrity with yourself to use it for that reason. So you'd write down what the money would be used for. And then I suggest picking one of those, but make the difficulty, pick the one where the difficulty is a 4 or less. And it's a 10 in desirability. So if you're proactive, if you're ahead of where you see this is going, then you can play with this and use the incredible wish list process to start to attract those extra resources to you, but not from a screaming, driving need, but rather from desire. In the Manifesting Guide, there's a fabulous chapter which I added most recently, end of last year when I was working on the book, and it's about the power of emotions. And not from a survival based, but from that desire, fanning the flames, the passion, the desire. So as we wrap up, I'd love to hear your insights, what you got out of it. And you can go to facebook.com/higher true self and you can leave a comment there. But before we wrap up this podcast, is go to highertrueself.com/freebies for your free. It's a wish list creation process, and it's a beautiful guide. There's a guided meditation in there, and you get the actual wish list, which I teach in the Highest Potential program. Go for it and play with this. I'd like to know how you get on with manifesting from desire versus need. Thanks for listening. It's Aryana Rollins with Manifesting Guide Podcast. Enjoy your day.